And I'm thinking, no way would you play on my mind and go and start waving bye-bye.
Morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. It's actually a morning that we're doing this, as opposed to an afternoon.
Yeah, we're not quite used to this, but we've decided to make an early start, and the light is probably not doing us any favours.
No.
But we didn't want to go artificial either, so
Yeah.
we're here somewhere.
Yeah, it's just mood lighting.
But it is supposed to be a very nice day.
Yeah, yes. At time of
Later.
filming, it's been probably the hottest week. Well, obviously the hottest week of the year. It's been pretty darn good in terms of weather.
Hence your outfit.
Hence I've gone
Not hence my outfit. I don't dress for the weather.
No. Well, we don't know. It might suddenly turn and get all cold again. So
Yes. Yeah, I'm ready.
yeah, exactly. But part of this is going to Rochester Sweeps today. Yeah. So, and that is, I don't know, actually, it's a free festival thing where loads of music happens, but part of the reason is I want to see Rob and Toby play from Crazy Water Common.
Lovely. Yeah.
So I'm going to catch them. I think they're playing a few times throughout the day.
So this is like a festival.
It's a big festival, yeah, just north of Kent. Yeah, and we actually, we'll get on to today's subject. But yeah, it kind of ties in kind of well with subject of the past, band life.
Okay. In the meantime, how's your week been?
Yes, week has been good. I have been trying to move a lot, which sounds really weird. I've been trying to remain active because my lifestyle has gone a bit calmer than it used to. I used to run around like a headless chicken.
Didn't stop.
As you know. And it's really funny. That was probably physically very good because I was constantly active and moving about. Mentally fine, but still a little bit like here, there, and everywhere. Now, though, I think I'm mentally calmer, so mentally more healthy, let's say. And my body needs to, remain not too sedentary.
I love it. I genuinely, I'm so excited for this kind of new phase.
It's a new phase. It's definitely a new phase. I think I'm going to think clearer. I think I already have, in a weird way. Yeah, nice. I'm sure. I don't know if we'll talk about we had a show recently, and I made a dress for it, and it was I approached making this dress in such a different way to how I would have even a month ago. Yeah, it's crazy. That's another whole kettle of fish, that sort of process of making clothing for stage.
Yeah. So today's topic, we're going to go do a bit of a deep dive on busking.
Busking, yeah.
It's something very much, the band were kind of known for it.
Yeah.
To a certain extent. Yeah. So it's something you've done time and time again. And I have no doubt you've got a lot of stories.
Well, I was thinking as well, I don't want it to be too much me just like talking at you. Because of course this was before Laura time.
This was well before
Laura era.
But I love it because I want to know more.
To dive in.
Well,
it really is diving in because it was 10 years ago now that busking was like a big part of the band. And we would, as well, it's really easy to remember the odd days, like the particularly sunny bank holiday where everyone was out. We'd get a huge crowd in a part of Canterbury. We bussed around actually a few places in Kent. And a few places in the UK actually, but predominantly Canterbury.
Yeah.
And it's really easy to remember those big like heyday moments, but actually there were so many days in between that, or hours and whole afternoons and whole evenings where it was just a bit ghost towny, and you'd have that, should we keep going, guys? Okay, should we wrap it up? Okay, fine. And actually, even just saying that has reminded me of the amount of like, obviously I never quite got to frostbite. I have all my digits still. But it was close. I remember being so cold, and I was playing the violin all the time in that setup. Obviously I was always the violin. And hours after hours of being outside playing, it is a bit cold, especially when you're me with my circulation. Your hands just start going, no, I don't want to move. I can't play anymore.
I'm done. Okay.
I'm done.
So a big reason why busking was so a part of band life was you sort of met busking.
Yeah, loosely, yes. We always say that, and actually in interviews with the band, we'd always say we all met busking, and it is near enough true because two of the main lads, they would definitely busk well before we knew any of them. And then we met, and then I got involved when I played. So it wasn't quite busking. I played a music event in a pub.
Okay.
So not actually on the street or anything, but I had done busking myself.
Okay.
And I remember actually, not a lot, but I on my own had not done huge amounts. But there was one Christmas Eve, and I was 16, so I was even well before band era.
Yeah.
And I just got it in my head, still a child basically, but I was like, I don't know what to do on Christmas Eve. I'm going to go and get a bus on Christmas Eve with my violin and busk and just like noodle about on the violin and play Christmas carols. And I remember making £62 something.
Aww.
And like going into the coffee shop, whichever coffee shop was open. I can't believe buses. I must have just waited until, there wouldn't have been many buses around. But like counting my pennies. And I'd like dressed up a bit kind of boho folky and it clearly, you don't say. But it really, I remember that being my first experience of busking myself. And
do you remember where you were?
Yeah, I was outside Lloyd's on the corner of Lloyd's, I think.
Wow.
On that corner. In fact, yes, definitely was, because the backdrop was really nice, big red brick building. And I remember Mum and Dad both saying afterwards, like, they loved it. They loved that I'd done it, but it was kind of sort of out of character in a way, because it was like, never done it before. You are performing. Yes, I'd performed in like school stuff, but it not like that. Just play violin into the open air and just see what happens. And I did enjoy it. So
did you sing along with it, or was it just?
Well, no, that was the thing with me busking on my own. It was because I don't play guitar and sing really loudly.
Yeah.
It's a hard thing to turn into busking when you're just violining on your own. It worked for Christmas. Maybe that was a really good sort of time as well. But violining on its own, that's what I did. I just played like carols so people would kind of notice the tune. Me singing and busking, I can't sing and play the violin really. Piano, suddenly if you're going to bring a piano busking, that's a whole different thing. That becomes street performing, because it's like, okay, well, I'm going to need some form of help or electricity or something. So yeah, mine was a very sort of minimal. And then I think we did a family trip to Dublin, and I had to try busking. So that was like my little intro.
Okay.
Yeah,
sure.
But no, the reason, the band, we'd all had our different experiences, and then together it was like together we made something far bigger and greater than we were individually, kind of thing. Obviously, because there was suddenly this chemistry of 5 people standing. We looked very engaging. Yeah. We also upped our game in terms of like we had more equipment, so we'd buy the battery powered speakers and things like that. So suddenly we had mics, and because I needed that, like, I couldn't have sung a cappella, so without some form of amplification. We also had Jamie beatboxing at the time, which was a really big crowd pleaser in a really good way. So and we'd bounce off each other, and that was very engaging, really engaging. Yeah, and it helped like having I remember always, Dust, can you make a sign? And that meant finding a bit of cardboard from somewhere or going into shops saying, do you have a bit of cardboard? Getting a Sharpie marker and like doing a nice looking sign and putting that by what would have been a hat or a violin case or a guitar case at the time. Yeah.
So the setup of 5 of you. Mm-hmm. So you've got beatboxing, violin, vocals, guitars.
Yeah.
Banjo?
Yes. Yeah. And actually that was with banjo player number 1. There were so many banjo players. Rob held out the longest. But and the banjo, that worked very well busking. Again, it looked different. It looked kind of cool and interesting. And also our bass to begin with was a double bass, which is the big huge instrument. Yeah. So again, like it was very easy to look quite iconic, like quite quickly, because it looked so weird. But it also sounded, and also we chose to do covers, which is so funny because at the time, which is obviously now 10 years ago, we were choosing kind of big hits from the 2000s and 90s. Yeah. So all the sort of mums with their little children would be like, oh my God, I love this one. And we do. I remember we had a moment where we collectively decided to stop Playing Ignition by R. Kelly, for obvious reasons.
Yep.
But that one did go down very well. Before that went down really well. But no, loads of like just anthem-y ones that everyone knew, and then they were seeing it recreated with a banjo and a beatbox and a dobro and a violin, and it would be
yeah. That's something you stop to watch.
Yeah, it definitely worked.
Did you have like a busking set? Was actually the freedom of part of the busking being?
That's a really good question.
Not that you'd want to actually be practicing on the street in front of people to a certain extent.
Yeah,
but
no, that's a really good question, because actually there were always winners that we kind of hold. If we could see a crowd was gathering, you'd hold off like you would in a normal show. You kind of wait for the best. I think more people come. Let's wait to do jump around. Let's do jump around later. Yeah. Or Whereas the Love was always a show starter.
Yes.
Sorry, and that travelled into sets as well, like proper. Yeah. When we did performances. Whereas Love, it was so iconic, that beginning bit on the violin, and if you've had a kind of flow of people, there was a certain amount of planning, but also I'm saying that as if we were really kind of clever with it. It was also very organic.
So you just knew, and it would be just somebody, right? We're going to do.
Always. We're going to do. Generally, unless a mind had gone blank, someone would go, oh, should we do this one? I go, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And it's funny you say about practicing in front of people. We did treat it as practice, and I'm sure that's how we got.
Absolutely. But you weren't trying to learn something off.
No. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, there would be an element of jamming. Which is not quite the same as learning. Like if you're just sitting in a room actually doing a rehearsal, it is very different feel. But busking when you're jamming, it is more exciting. And I can see why people stopped and watched, because if you're watching musicians and you kind of know they're all jamming, you can tell on musicians' faces if they're jamming and kind of like, what are we doing? Yeah. But if they're doing it with a big smile and like laughing at, and it's still sounding okay, that's something cooler. Like they're sort of just making this up as they go along, and then that fed into our fed into the set we perform at.
And I suppose to a certain extent, for people that perhaps were band fans 16, 17, 18 plus, you could almost liken it to Coco TV. Yes. Some of the evenings that you... And that shows what actually your musical talents were, but you'd grown it from...
Completely. It had been...
10 years ago.
Yeah. And that's really true. And I always forget that. I wonder if the others do. Like, we did work very well together, but that is because we put so many hours into it.
Yeah.
And it's a kind of double-edged sword. There was a kind of clear person in charge, and that meant things kind of got done their way. And that, although it felt sometimes a little dictatorial, it did get stuff done. Like, so that was, it was good and bad, that. But being all kind of spending that many hours just playing constantly again. I think as well, the band got very well known for just longevity of performances, if that makes sense. Like being able to play for so long. Again, that was from whole afternoons of busking.
Yeah.
I remember going to festivals or sometimes and seeing other artists and especially other female singers, and they go, oh no, I'd be tired out after an hour. And I'm like, am I allowed to feel like that? Hang on,
I've never done that.
We're allowed to get tired out? I just got told to carry on. What?
Brilliant.
But it was, but that was one of those times. Yes, we were told to carry on, but that's one of those moments where I think I only got stronger from doing that.
Yes.
So, yeah. And there was something so wholesome about busking there. Like busking, you're playing. It is. Yeah, it was fun. I won't lie. There would have been times I was grumpy as anything, because you do get cold, massively cold, and we're tired after a few hours. And there's that gamble of like, is it worth it anymore? Like, have we, has the crowd gone? Are people there? Like, is anyone actually in town anymore? Depending on the time of day and what day of the week and all that. And you have to have 5 people kind of go. Well, actually, no, you have to have one person in charge saying, "Okay, let's wrap up." And there will come a point where you're dying for that line to be said. He's like, "Can we wrap up now? Can we wrap up? Can we finish?"
So as far as the structure of doing busking, obviously in the later years, we would kind of almost have a plan for the year. Your festivals are booked in advance.
Yeah.
Your shows, especially if you're doing a tour or a headline, etc. You know what the calendar looks like. Anything else becomes a bonus. Right back when you were busking, did you because you were doing a few festivals, so you still had that sort of structure. Did busking fit in because you had those gaps, or was busking something where when the schedule was being made, it was like, no, we must also make sure busking is part of the pattern?
Oh, so good. I think it morphed between the two. So when we were kind of quite Kent-based still, so earlier on, we'd have gigs dotted about in Kent. We would do it by default, and there wouldn't really be a huge amount of thought. Well, I say that. I wasn't giving it a huge amount of thought because someone else was. Thankfully, I got to sort of coast along a bit there. But there was, like on that sign that I had to kind of go and hurriedly make with Coke and the Butterfields written on it, I had to, we'd maybe say like, oh, playing here Friday night at 7 p.m. or whatever. We might say.
It's kind of at marketing.
It was hugely. And it's funny because it just preceded the rise of Instagram. Instagram was around and social media was definitely around. But like, I wonder what it would have been like if we just had that era of the band, but like 5 or 10 years later. Because now we'd be desperately trying to get people on their phones, like hashtagging and tagging and all that sort of thing. But back then, I don't remember that being a big. I might have written what we were, but it wasn't a huge.
You didn't have the app, and the follow us and subscribe.
Maybe you did follow us. I do remember writing that, but I don't remember it being like a. I don't remember scrolling through videos of us busking, thinking like, "Oh, that one's gone really well." Like,
there were a few.
There were. Maybe they're more Facebook than they are Instagram, but because that kind of took off before, didn't it? But no, mate. Yeah, it's just I don't remember sort of focusing it around Instagram, whereas now everything seems to focus around or TikTok or whatever.
The bigger reach, social media.
Exactly. Okay. So we would have kind of honed it, and being the way we were, we might have tried to hone it to get bigger in certain ways. Which, but at the time, that's what I mean by it was kind of wholesome. Because it felt like it to me, at least, because we would just go out playing music, having fun, and it was anyone walking, having fun for the most part. When we weren't bored to tears. But like. Yeah, I think people looking in on that, it didn't seem hugely contrived. It didn't seem manufactured. It just seemed like, here's a motley crew that they all look a bit mad together, but they're playing cool sounds. And that, like, bottom line, that was why I think it did grab so many people. And the other thing was when we did do a tour that went around the UK, that was when we were more planned with it and thought, cool, we're going to be playing a gig in Stockton, which is right up north. Let's do busking in Stockton. And we did busking in Birmingham, Exeter. Cool. Like, I remember.
And would that be sort of the night before, day of?
Yeah, maybe the day of.
We're doing a show.
Yeah.
We've arrived. Let's almost have a bit of a warm-up.
It is. Yeah, it was exactly that.
We're here, last-minute tickets.
Yeah.
Come watch us.
Yeah, which is also crazy because we'd be on a tour. So a tour itself is famously quite tiring.
Yeah.
Because you're gigging. Like, you're gigging or you're sleeping in a van or you're, brushing your teeth in a car park. You're living, like, on the road. So generally you're getting quite ropey in every sense. And then to sort of jam in busking afternoons there, it was just we were very hardworking. Because I'm just trying to imagine a lot of musicians would be like, no, I want to save myself for the night, save your energy for that evening.
Makes sense.
It does make sense, but it worked, and I'm sure we got a lot of good ticket sales because of that. To be working that, paying that much, basically.
Yeah. So Canterbury was kind of your patch, if you like. You were well known for actually being near the cathedral as well.
Yeah, Butter Market.
In the Butter Market, and obviously which then became sort of an album front and things like that.
Yeah.
As you say, Lloyd's Bank on the corner.
Yep.
And you did some of it further up as well. Yeah.
We'd call it Cafe Rouge. Yeah, it's not that anymore.
Favourite? I don't know, is that a thing?
Yeah, no, it definitely is. I always preferred the one nearer the clock tower, so the one higher up in Canterbury. Because there is that big. Well, I think it was. You've got an intersection of about 4 different streets that all come together there, which I think, although they all have intersections, that's why they're good busking spots. I always preferred there. It was really, when we were busking, there was always that social. There was politics,
of course.
Obviously.
This is exactly what I want to get
Yeah. Oh my god, there are so many politics. And it was funny because as a group, we definitely seemed to, not all of us, some of us rubbed other people up the wrong way. Like, so it felt like we were either on people's very good sides or very bad sides.
Are we talking sort of council shopkeepers?
Both.
Yeah.
So as
opposed to the public.
Yeah, well, yeah, the public generally didn't think twice, they just saw musicians, that was great. But there are two camps of people that we could easily piss off. One is shopkeepers, council people, it's / council people, and one is other buskers. Because people get territorial. Oh my goodness. So you have to kind of, well, I don't remember it being a huge struggle, but like we'd get there earlier in the day than later just to kind of bag your spot.
Yeah.
And then of course you have the breaks, kind of go and stop coffee every few hours. And we actually had so much stuff, it's not like someone could pinch our spot.
Yeah, so you weren't walking away.
Yeah, but that is a thing, like you have to kind of, if you're, and then sometimes we'd get, more often than not, we'd get people that worked in shops nearby coming along on their lunch break saying, oh, it sounds really good. And we'd be like, I would always be like, is it okay? Is the sound, if they're trying to make a sale in their shop and they've got this speaker, like a load of beatboxing into there, it's annoying for them. It might actually disrupt their business. But generally, they're like, we can't hear you, but it's so good, we don't mind. Like, thank God. Occasionally, there would be people like, oh, turn it down. I did understand where they were coming.
Yeah.
It's difficult. Yeah, one person busking is very different to 5 people busking. That's like a full-on band. And if you've got it all afternoon and you're just in your shop and, And
you're not calm musicians.
No, exactly. It's like, let's have a party. And if you're not in that zone.
Yeah.
But it's high street. And thankfully, it was a more resounding, like, yes, we love the music, the high street to feel alive than shut the hell up.
Yeah. And I think it was part and parcel of the time. Maybe as well.
Yeah, it was.
I do think you probably get a lot more flack now.
Possibly, yeah.
And I think the council are far hotter. Like you say, we have done a form of busking
with you,
right at the end of kind of band time, which was planned and was part of an event. So it was busking to a certain extent, but actually all very, like, everything was ticked. Yeah. But when we looked into it for potentially doing it again, it's all become a tick box exercise.
Hugely red tape. Yeah, red tape everywhere. I think I don't know actually, I must find out, but like the busking solo person on a guitar singing a cappella, I'm sure that is still like free for all.
I think it's to an extent. I think they get moved on after a while.
Maybe, yeah. Possibly. So yeah, unfortunately that's just, if you're good you can probably stay. If you're not.
I think so.
It might be that.
Yeah.
But it is I know having amplification changes everything.
Yes.
And it's kind of understandable. I don't know whether the amount of musicians makes it, but it does, it crosses the line into, okay, now you are street performing.
Yes.
And the council have to get their claws in and sort of say, well, what are you doing? What are you doing? Tell us everything, which is annoying.
Let us have fun.
Just let us play. But no, I mean, I've thought about it we've talked about it, haven't we, for Dulcima solo stuff. And it would be very hard to rock up with a keyboard and, I'd need certain things. I'd need electricity. And so that is something I'd have to work with the council on and just say like, or you can get generators and things and be completely, not need someone's power socket.
Yeah.
But even that is, I think you'd have an official come down. Depends how long as well. If you're there for like an hour, maybe you could get away with it. It's not worth setting it up just for an hour.
And especially, like you say, and is the high street doing well enough? There's not something we want to get into.
No, that's another whole thing.
Especially, Canterbury, it's maybe not the place to be at the moment.
And this is a whole separate rant, and for viewers of this, it's probably not really relevant. But we've split everyone over to potentially Riverside now. There's a whole other complex thing.
I think that's doing well.
No, but they've spread the attention of people everywhere. So now we won't have. I don't know. Maybe there would be flurries of people still in town, but in the high street,
you'd have to time it very well.
You'd have to think ahead and hope as well. There is so much just like blind faith that goes into. Well, I hope that I hope it's worth all the effort I'm going to go to. Which is why sometimes it's better to do the planned thing and be part of a city event, and just gather your get a following that way. But it's still, as well, a very slow way of getting a following now compared to Instagram and social media.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's kind of it's a dying art, I'm sure.
I agree.
Yeah.
And especially for up and coming country musicians, and
why would they go to the effort maybe to get a load of people stopping and watching? And there are people stopping and watching. That doesn't mean they're gonna buy your stuff forever. It does not mean they're gonna come to a show. It just means that that's nice.
So the timing for you guys, actually,
it was pinnacle timing.
Yeah,
it was perfect timing, perfect cacophony of loads of things. Definitely the spirit we all had together, like where we were at in the band, the life of the band, and where Busking and where the world was at. In a really, God, that sounds really massive.
Yeah, but it's true though.
It is true. Yeah,
and there was quite a community.
Yeah,
which actually you then were a part of, as opposed to not potentially people looking or you looking down on buskers, but there's a level of professional musician, and then potentially buskers to the side. You managed to cross both.
No, that's really true, and it was a community hugely, which probably meant we did it more, like as in because there was that. Everyone always says, "Oh, there was much more of a music scene back then," and it felt like that to me because I was like well and truly in it.
I don't agree.
I wouldn't have known what it was like if I wasn't involved. Like I don't know, but because I was well and truly in that world. Exactly that. There was a whole community of other buskers, and like I say, there were those little internal politics. Nothing hugely crazy, but nothing really bad. It wasn't like gang warfare or anything.
So you knew faces.
Yeah.
People did have spots.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to get into it, but obviously King of the Corner was.
No, I was going to say, because it sounds all happy clappy now.
Yeah.
But that was and this is a really weird, there was a hugely sad story that it was 2013, I think, January. It was like a winter in January 2013, and the two buskers actually died in Canterbury, and it was a huge news story. We knew them both. 3 buskers had gone missing, and then 2 had been found. And they, for such a horrendous story, the band name, got plastered about with the news story. And not in a bad way, because we knew them, and Canterbury Buskers, you think of the band name.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like, and we did know them, and I just remember there was a reporter from BBC News, trying to, interview us and everything. And I remember feeling uncomfortable. All of us did. We were like, this feels a bit attention grabbing, a bit glory grabbing, for completely the wrong thing. But I remember as well, though, the news reporter was trying to talk to me, asked me about the busking, asked me about these 2 buskers, and I knew one of their mothers. He was local to my village, and so he said, "Can you get her to chat with me?" And I was like, "Hell no! I'm not going to collar the mother of a 17-year-old boy who has just died." Help. So at that point, I was like, "Better we talk." I don't want to do that. There was a really heart-wrenching era of that, where it didn't kill off busking as a thing, but it definitely put this kind of really sad. It wasn't actually linked. They didn't.
No, it was their personal life.
It was something they
just happened to be busking. It was buskers.
But that was the headline, Canterbury Buskers, because that's. But the King of the Corner, was written about that corner of Lloyd's, which was a famous busking spot. Everyone, you'd often find a busking spot, a busker there. And there's a man called Tig who used to busk there, and he was kind of a closest friend. He was not. I won't lie. He wasn't a close friend of mine, but he was a close friend of some of the others. And that song was written about him, and that it was an amazing song in its own right, I believe.
Yep.
But it also was so